My view is that it's people that believe that they're on a journey, because that's what we're all on together, and that this is everyone's company that we're building together. I think that if it's more of a tops-down culture, sometimes it can be seen as a job. People are very concerned about what they're doing in their life, kind of like their job, like what their specific goals are. Where if it's bottoms up, we're all building this together, and we know why we have the core values. It's because it's a journey, because it's hard.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
When it comes to culture, do you have a really clear understanding of what your culture is, how it works together, how it's evolving as your company grows? Well, culture is one of those things we think we understand. But what I've found is organizations really get a little bit more focused on execution and strategy and maybe some of the challenges and issues that need to be faced. And they haven't really thought about how culture is. What is culture within an organization? You might have values, you might have a vision, but do you really have a very clear principle of what your culture is? Well, today we're going to look at bottoms up culture. Now, you may not have heard this term before. Maybe you've thought about it in different ways with servant leadership, because I think there is some connection there. But we want to make sure that you understand what bottoms up culture is, because this organization that we feature today has leveraged this and has labeled this, and this is what they are operating from. And it's created a sense of connection and unity across the company. All that being said, our special guest today is Kevin Frechette. He is the founder of Fairmarkit. They're a procurement platform leveraging AI as this market emerges. And we're really excited about this conversation today, because bottoms up culture isn't a common term. But once you understand what it is at a high level, it is creating a two-way feedback loop from people at the front lines of the business, which are traditionally at the bottom of the authority chain, if you will, or triangles as people model leadership in organizations. But it is that bottoms up is really about people being empowered and experimenting and really making decisions that allow a more two-way street of conversations and dialogue about where the company's going, instead of it being one way down, which is executives saying, this is what it is, this is where we're going, and go do it. And it works at some level, but a two-way bottoms-up culture is something I think is really interesting, and hopefully you'll find that more interesting today after the conversation with Kevin. My job here is to help you be the best leader you can be and help your organization run smoothly. We do executive coaching, which is when we work with the top levels of the company, one-on-one, privately, in different ways. That's an incredible way for your company to stay tuned in and always be evolving. We also have leadership development program that allows us to serve organizations by creating a system for leadership. How do you take those frontline managers and turn them into leaders? Well, we give you the tools they need to be more confident and effective as leaders. One of the things that we offer, just as a chance to connect with each other, if you're listening to this podcast, I'd love to invite you to the leadership effectiveness evaluation. It's a formal process I take you through to give you value about where you are right now. And if you understand where you are, it's much easier to create a plan for where you're going. There's 7 dials in the leadership effectiveness evaluation. If you're curious about that, just go to genehammett.com and schedule today. It's absolutely free if you just mention that you heard it on a podcast. And I'd love to be able to give you that insight. It's something we've been using with paying clients for years, and we're going to pull it forward just for you. It's customized, it's powerful, and it's valuable. Now, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today and mention that you heard it on the podcast for the leadership effectiveness evaluation. Now, here's the interview with Kevin. Kevin, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing, Gene?
We're going to have a great time today talking about bottom-up culture, what that is, why it really benefits the organization for fast growth. But before we get there, tell us about your company, Fairmarkit. Market it.
Yeah, Fairmarkit. So Fairmarkit, we're an autonomous sourcing platform. We help large enterprises optimize the way they buy goods and services. So we work with companies like Boeing, BP, Snowflake, and helping them drive to different business outcomes around saving costs, reducing cycle times, driving more spend to diverse and sustainable suppliers. Realistically, the problem we're solving is in the procurement space. There's a lot of legacy players that are very manual. So what happens is that you have manual processes. You don't have a ton of people in procurement. You focus your time in certain areas, but you can't optimize other areas. So we brought a new way to look at sourcing in AI and now generative AI driven approach. So it's been a fun ride. We got ranked 159 in the Inc. 5000, and yeah, we're just grinding every day.
That's impressive. I always like to get a little follow-up question about the company and the market you're in. Supply chain is something I know a little bit about. I was an industrial engineer in my education, but I never practiced. But I would love for you to share with us what you think the future of supply chain, platforms are, and what, really where the market's going.
So we kind of view the world. There's like two different sides. One's supply chain and one's procurement. When you think supply chain, you think like chips within cars. You think about these like supply chain shortages around the world, which are massive. That's almost a whole different space than what we're playing in right now. We're more in the procurement space.
Okay.
Procurement space is essentially when organizations that they need to buy things, and you have all these millions of suppliers that want to sell to these big companies. How do you match up the harmony of putting supply and demand together, doing it in an efficient way, and also doing it in a way that drives the business outcomes and good outcomes for the supplier as well? When we think about what the future looks like, we think AI plays a super, super large role in making sure that it's as low touch as possible and as end user focused as possible on the buy side. So there's a lot of different new generative AI use cases that are pretty interesting for that. And on the supplier side as well, like if you think about how people buy and sell today, it's even worse than your personal life. You're picking up the phone, you're making a phone call to a supplier, you're sending an email trying to get a quote. And you do that tens of thousands of times a year for a big company, and everything's lost, disaggregated, no benchmarking. It's a black hole, which is nuts, but this is how big companies operate today. So if you think about the future state, it's still in the hands of the end user, whether on the sell side or the buy side, but there is technology and automation and AI to make sure that both sides are driving to the outcomes they're looking for. But it happens over time. It's an archaic industry.
Perfect. I'm glad you corrected me in my description of what you guys are doing, but I know you live this and breathe it. Kevin, we got here because you were a fast growth company. Your company, has grown, and it takes a certain kind of leadership and a focus on people, because you didn't do this alone. You have something that you call bottoms up culture. And I'd love for you to start by explaining what it is.
Yeah. It actually just came out. We're doing different podcasts where someone was just asked me a bunch of questions about culture. And we were just kind of talking about it. It kind of just came to fruition. Essentially, the way we view culture is that some companies have it where they talk about it, and where it's the executives that say, this is our culture, this is our culture. And in reality, sometimes it's real, a lot of times it's kind of fluffy, where it's like, no, this is what we stand for, this is who we are, this is what we say out to the public. But in reality, what it really matters is, how does the whole company feel about it? How does every single person, whether they're an intern, a co-op, they're in their first week, all the way up to the executives, do they actually believe it? Are they part of it? Are they the ones that are driving it and making sure that everyone's held accountable to it as we're scaling? Because people can't be in every meeting. You can't audit everything. You need people to defend, this is the way that we operate, and then here's why we operate this way. I also think that if it's more of a bottoms up, which means that everyone's responsible for it, everyone should help to motivate and drive and inspire people towards it. It also makes it so it can evolve as the team evolves. Where early on we thought that, okay, our culture is one thing, it's set, we're like this Fairmarkit family, and now we're realizing it's a culture it's a team. And as our team grows, as we bring on additional players, as the market changes, we mature as a company, that culture should change and the core values should change. And that's what we just continue to do. We're very rigid on it, where we are very adamant towards our core values. We defend them, but we're open that they're going to change over time. So let's stay flexible.
Well, a lot of the conversations here end up talking about core values. Some people think that they're, unnecessary, or maybe they'll do it once. It's kind of a little exercise, but then they focus on getting to work. Why do you think core values are so important inside of a growing organization?
Because it's really, really hard. And there's tons of friction, and because things don't go your way a lot of the time. So if there's all this, I won't call it turmoil, it's not the right word, but if all this uncertainty and all this change and course correction, if you don't have a framework for how you operate and work with each other and make decisions, then all of that could become very, there could be a non-positive friction, we'll call it, or there might be inefficiencies, or might just be bad experiences for people. So we're very adamant. Our core values are operate with excellence, act with integrity, we before me, and change the game. We say them before every company meeting. We say them at every board meeting. Our board members know our core values. I challenge them if not. They kind of egg me on if I don't ask them for the core values. And when we talk about them, we don't just say, here's what they are. It's let's call out areas where people are actually living and working by our core values. So we have fame channels within Lattice. So you give shout outs to people when they are doing something that deserves a shout out. We give an Eagle of the Week because our mascot's an eagle. That's a whole different story. But an Eagle of the Week to people that demonstrate our core values on a weekly basis. So we just kind of ingrain it as part of like what good looks like at Fairmarkit. And it has allowed us to make a lot of course corrections over the last 5.5 years that I think would have been, they're already difficult, but they would have been much more difficult without them.
Just a fine tuning what you just said. We mentioned the core values in every meeting. Like, is this a 10-second thing where everyone's doing it, or is it one person mentioning these? How do you guys actually execute on that?
Yeah, you can have some fun with it. So you could call it random people. You pass on the core values. One does each one. We also say our North Star. So we are revolutionizing the way all organizations buy and sell. So before every meeting, we start with that. Sometimes one person does them. Sometimes we go around the horn. But it just makes it so it's reinforced and everyone at all times knows exactly what they are and exactly what the North Star is. It also means a lot and sends a message if we do it in our board meetings as well, because like the board's part of the company. We're all in this journey together. So yeah, it's something, honestly, it's fun, but in reality, we kind of, somebody call us up to the company. Sometimes we're kind of like silly, we joke with them, but at the same time, if there is a violation of them, where you earn the trust and the respect is when you have to make really difficult decisions if those core values are violated. So that's something that we have zero tolerance for, and we're very comfortable making the decision quickly.
Now, Kevin just mentioned about values in the meetings, and I love the detail that he added there, but I also wanted to share with you the reason why you want to do things like this is because when you have rituals, things that are repeated over and over and over, it allows the company to understand how important your values are. It allows you to operationalize them, if you will, and make it so that you're living the values. You're operating from that place of understanding. You're empowering people through it. And if you say them every day in the meetings, as this example gives, in different ways, I work with clients. I've suggested other ways to create rituals across the organization. Some of those are in meetings and some of those in other aspects of the culture and the organization. But you want to make sure that you look at what's right for your company and look at, how are we evolved and the rituals that we do that allow us to unify together and really communicate the importance of values. I believe this is important. Hopefully you do too. And back to Kevin. Well, Kevin, I appreciate the detail on that. You guys have probably had different things that didn't work and things that do work, but this bottoms up culture, what would we see across the organization if we were recording it? Like, what are the visible signs of a bottoms up culture?
My view is that it's people that believe that they're on a journey, because that's what we're all on together, and that this is everyone's company that we're building together. I think that if it's more of a tops down culture, sometimes it can be seen as a job. People are very concerned about what they're doing in their life, kind of like their job, like what their specific goals are. Where if it's bottoms up, we're all building this together and we know why we have the core values. It's because it's a journey, because it's hard. And we say it all the time as well. It's everyone's making a bet on Fairmarkit, and any startup or any company at this stage, or more, I guess, different classifications for startup. And like we talk about all the time, like there's a million jobs that are easier out there, but everyone has selected to come and to be part of this and to help to build this. So we want to make sure that like this company that we're creating is responsible and accountable to everyone. It's not just to the founders. It's not just to the executive team. It's not just to the sales wins or to whatever it is. Every win is a win for the company. Every loss is a loss for the company, which is great because that's how it should be when you're scaling.
You've got a lot of tools that, probably help people stay connected, people feel appreciated and valued. What is your favorite way to lead your team that you feel like makes the most impact on this? Is it one-on-one meetings, or how would you describe your favorite approach?
My favorite is more organic, and it's having people give shout outs to other people in different departments for doing great work. It kind of covers all corners. where sometimes when you're looking for a shout out for someone for the whole company, you get to see what's visible. You see someone that did someone maybe on the CS side or a big product launch or on the sales side, a closed deal, but you miss all those like smaller wins that are so critical along the way. But people throughout the whole organization, they can see it. They know when someone crushed me. They know when they cracked a tough code on the product side. They know when there was a great experiment on the data science team, whatever it is. And the idea that people can call out people, not just on their team, but around them in different departments, it does make the whole group feel like, okay, one company, but it also makes sure that people are highlighted and praised for the good work that they're doing. And in my view, like that's how you keep people excited and fired up in the role. You show growth and development tracks, but also you make sure that they're getting shout outs for the awesome work they're doing. And without that work, like we don't get to do what we're doing in terms of a whole company. So it's like celebrating those small wins, which is sometimes tough, but it's cool when people do it organically and naturally throughout the week and throughout the month.
I love that too within companies. A lot of my clients have adopted that as a part of the strategies and rituals of their own culture. And it has worked tremendously, and it's absolutely free, right? It doesn't cost money and we're appreciating others, which is really a good part of the culture. I know it's one of your values is we over me or we before me?
We before me.
And that really is just about a team aspect. So thanks for sharing the details. Kevin, one of the things that you had told me before you hit the recorder was you believe in investing in your team, truly, in getting executive coaches for those people that are moving into new leadership roles. Why do you think investing in people is such an important part of culture?
I'll put a disclaimer that we can always be doing better and we can always be investing more, and we still need to get better at Fairmarkit always when it comes to investing in our people. We kind of give you our journey with executive coaching with training. It was about three and a half years ago. We got the recommendation from a board member of have this executive coach. If you want an intro, you can kind of meet him and see if you like the session. So we had our first session, and then we thought, okay, this would be really cool because when you're growing at scale, it's there's always something going on. You just try to block your calendar off. You make time. You try to be very specific with like your priorities and make sure you're working at your executive currency and above. But at the same time, like you're just getting pulled into so much. So when we first started having those sessions, it was just such a cool way to take a step back. And we used to even do a thing coming into the session. It was red, yellow, or green. How much do I have your attention? And if it's green, it's like, all right, full attention. We're ready to go. Yellow, there's a lot of stuff going on, but we're good. We can be in the session. Red is like, okay, your head's somewhere else. And then and then we'd unpack, like, okay, why is that right now? But we had our first couple sessions, and then we had to say, let's have the executive team have this same coach. And then we decided that, you know what, for other leaders in the company, it probably makes sense. We brought on another executive coach as well. And then we thought anytime something gets promoted to VP, let's give them an executive coach as well, and in some other different situations. So it's a way, it helps the company because as people develop their leadership skills, they be better people managers, prioritizing towards OKRs, but also it shows them that we're investing in them. So for their own careers, they're continuously getting better. So it's been a cool journey for us. Now we have 3 different executive coaches. We probably have 8 to 10 people right now that are doing executive coaching. So we're going to continue leaning in on that.
Now, Kevin just said something, and I've actually said these words too. He said, there would be no time in which I don't have a coach. Now, what I take this to remember is he sees value in coaching. I see value in coaching. And actually, I've had a coach on and off again for the last actually 2 decades. Now, you may think that, can't you just do this on your own? And the answer is yes, I can do it on my own. That's not the point of coaching. I can do it faster with a coach. I can do it with a higher benefit to me. And I can actually, navigate around some of the problems that I didn't foresee and some of the blind spots and address these things. And that's the value of coaching for me. Now, when I'm working with clients and I'm doing the same thing, it's such a different experience because I'm not emotionally attached to their world the way they've always done it and all of those things. And that's exactly the reason why coaching is so powerful. It is such a different experience when someone's not emotionally attached in your world. They've seen patterns. And, me as an executive coach for the last decade, I have added value to companies that allowed them to exit their companies for literally 20 million plus. I've had companies that have come back to me saying, you know what, we now have a self-managing company because of the foundation that you've built, and we could take off for a month and the company just continues to run and grow beyond me. Those are the kinds of things my clients are talking about. And that's the reason why you want to have a coach, is if you're continuously leveling up and really pushing the boundaries of your own effectiveness. And think about what that could do for you and your team. When you think about coaching, either at the executive level or at the manager level, is another option. So not a commercial here, but just a way for you to think about, I will never go without a coach to support me and challenge me. Hopefully you've seen the power of investing in that. And if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me. Now back to Kevin. Full disclosure, you're not working with our company, but
No. I got the sales pitch right before this, though.
Yeah. No. But I don't see the competition out there. I just wanted you to talk about the benefit, because a lot of people are still kind of stuck in this. I've got to this point, I'm successful, I can do it alone. And I know every time I've read the stories of these, high-level Silicon Valley executives, that, I don't really need a coach, but as soon as they get one, they're like, oh my God, I should have done this earlier. But you're just talking about the impact that it's making. So I really appreciate that, Kevin.
I mean, I'll probably, I don't see a world where I won't have an executive coach, even like in a beyond future state. Now, I'll give you one example. I'm sure you've done different things like with this with the people you coach. Is really kind of challenging in like pushing yourself from a leadership perspective of how do you view yourself, how does the company view you, and what do you need to develop into. And sometimes it's kind of a tough like that. You can get really down to the roots. It can kind of feel like a therapy session sometimes. But what I acknowledge and what I realized about 2.5, 3 years ago is we create this thing called one big thing. Like, what's the one big thing I need to work on as a leader as I continue scaling and the company does? And for me, it was be a leader that can develop and maintain strong personal relationships while also holding people accountable and making difficult and sometimes unpopular business decisions. And that was a big one for me, because I'm very much a like positivity, rah, let's get fired up, let's go run through walls, like building very personal relationships with people. And I was kind of wrestling with this polarizing idea. Well, if I do that, can I always make the hard business decision? And like the outcome that we had was, it's not polarizing. It's not one or the other. It's how do I do both at the same time? And then I communicated that to the whole company. I said, this is the one big thing I'm working on. So it just different things like that I wouldn't have come to that conclusion on my own. And I don't think I would have set myself on that path by myself.
And I'm going to point out something. I noticed that you were reading that. So I'm assuming that you have it printed on something next to your screen so that you're reminded of that on a regular basis. Is that right? Or did I miss that?
So that one's not printed. So I do have that. I can reference all the time. Like word for word, I don't have that one, but the idea of it, of balancing personal relationships while being able to make difficult and sometimes unpopular business decisions. Those are the two things that I'm very conscious of.
I love that it gets down to clarity, because one of the moves I make within coaching is people just show up every day with work and they're not truly stepping back to look exactly who they are, what's getting in the way of their leadership, and how they're moving forward. Just you going through this experience with these coaches over the last 3 years, I would imagine it's made you a better leader, and your team has felt the benefit of that across the board. And that in turn creates positive impact for business and relationships. Would you agree to that?
I would agree. As a disclaimer threw it earlier, I need to keep getting better. I think that the areas that have been very impactful for me is making sure that when we're communicating a message, when we're trying to get to a certain outcome, we're really thinking about what is the ripple effect? How could everyone look at this in a different way? And then how do we best construct the message to be able to communicate the why behind what we're doing in a way that everyone understands is the best interest for them and for the company? Also, a big piece is just how we structure the company and how we structure communication, how we structure the senior leadership team, the executive team, the overall leadership team. I think that's an area that I'm guessing every founder or most leaders, they struggle with, because it constantly changes as you're scaling. When you go from 20 people to 40 to 80 to 120, the dynamics change. People that have been in the role for a long time versus not in the role, like newer players coming in. It's an area that's kind of like an evolving area of opportunity of how do we best set up the organization. So that's another one that I spend a lot of time with our executive coach on.
We're wrapping up today, Kevin, and I'm just curious, what have we not covered that you feel like is necessary to explain bottoms-up culture and the impact that it's made across the business?
I mean, one of the areas that we've seen is that when you enable people to go and be able to move fast, and something that we need to work on still, is that typically does encourage a little bit more of a culture of experimentation and trying out different things. Because if your culture and your setup and everything's very tops down, and it's very like top down directive, and it's okay, this is what we're doing. You need to have OKRs, you need to have alignment to OKRs, like that all makes sense. But it can't be like that way or the highway, which sometimes feels that way when you have a culture, when you have the executive team saying, this is what we're doing. We try to still give the guardrails. So here's where we're going. In the next 3 years, we're going to be the #1 sourcing solution on the market. We have plans beyond that, but that's the next 3 years. But if you give people the autonomy to say, okay, this is our business, we're driving this together, here's where we're looking to go. But within your guardrails, go experiment, go try, fail, go try different things, go try to test. It really does set, I think, the company up to learn as we go. And it also, I think something that we try to do a very good job of is it allows for two-way feedback and communication, where there are certain situations, organizations where feedback goes down, new ideas and feedback doesn't come up. And in those worlds where it's a top down, once again, you might misfire. You might miss the opportunity to hear from everyone. That's the whole idea of being inclusive, is you want people with different perspectives, different experience to weigh in. So we're at the size company where we need everyone to step up and to speak their voice. And this bottoms up mentality, we hope that that's what it fosters.
Great place to end today. I could keep going on and on because I think that you've got some magic that a lot of people are connected to within the company. I'm sure other leaders are interested. But Kevin, thanks for being here and being a part of the show.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
What a great time for us to really connect about this bottoms up culture and be able to share this idea with you. What I love about this concept is the two-way street description of having employees that are having different kinds of dialogue as they experiment and as they learn and as they go out and take action. They're feeling more empowered, and how leadership engages them to do that. The two-way part of the bottoms up culture is my favorite element that he described, but also love the fact that he's really operationalizing values, because I do believe that that's an important piece that people just don't do that well as where companies are growing. And so hopefully you've got some insights in today's episode. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.